Okay, 6:01, please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Smith,
Here.
Rose,
Here.
Burbank,
Here.
Green. Oh, he was on Zoom.
Oh, no.
Maybe he'll come back. Arsano.
Here.
Sundstrom.
Here.
Anderson. Here. I don't know where he went.
That's the connection. I know it was up there. He was,
Somebody did, yeah. He got on early, so.
okay. That's all right. He'll come back on. We'll acknowledge him when he comes back. Let's see. Do we have any additions, deletions to the agenda this evening?
Brandon's back.
Seeing none.
We do have one amendment. Mayor, under our regular agenda, we will be holding a public hearing this evening on the Sunstrom Sewer Latecomers Agreement. We will be continuing that public hearing to February 14th. And at that time, we will move to agenda item number 2 under regular agenda, which would be the city approval or consideration of said Latecomers Agreement.
Okay. So we'll have the public hearing, but
Tonight, and then it will be continued to
the 14th.
the 14th for an additional review.
Right. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We got Brandon back.
Yeah.
Okay. And can we hear, Brandon, can we hear you all right?
He needs to unmute.
Or you're muted.
Councilmember Green, can you unmute? It will not let me unmute, he says.
Oh, okay. Well, he can hear us. All right.
Technical difficulties.
Motion passes. So on to, we have a public comment section for everybody that's here tonight. If you're here for the latecomers agreement, that will be later in the agenda. But if you'd like to speak now, we'll have a public comment period in the beginning and at the end, and then we'll have the latecomers agreement discussion in the middle. So if anybody would like to speak, Connie?
Good evening, council. My name's Connie Bender. I live at 1915 Ryan Road here in Buckley. What I'd like to speak on is on tonight's agenda, the restroom and trail parking lot amendment. When I was on the council, I spoke on this in our Buckley Design Guidelines on page 27. Number 4, parking and vehicle access. Parking shall primarily be provided on River Road when the required minimum number of off-street parking spaces as dictated by BMC 1928-040 cannot be accommodated on River Road. Off-street parking shall be located in the city designated parking areas. Well, I looked up the BMC 1928-040. And basically that is for commercial, sports, and residential, such as basketball courts and such, not for parking, not just a big parking space. So I would like this council to get some further information before they vote on this, because it's not allowed there. If you want parking for the what we're saying now, it's for the trail parking lot. It used to be for the basketball parking. It should be when you first come off Orion and get on River Avenue. The city owns a lot there. People used to park there all the time to go on the trail. that is the safest spot. It's already got curbing. It already has a driveway going in. Needs some cleaning up because it hasn't been touched in a while. That is where it should be, because it's going to be off of River Avenue. Not over
Jefferson.
Jefferson, correct. To put it over by Jefferson, where they wanted to locate it, would mean you're going to bring more traffic on Jefferson. Even though discussion has been to close it, there's very little traffic normally when Jefferson's open. But you get a big parking lot over there, you're going to have more vehicles going across the trail. You're going to have a large restroom, people going across that roadway to get to the restroom. It's not safe. You're looking at little kids running across, Mom, I want to go use the restroom, because they don't want to use the porta potties on the other side. It's the safety of our community has to come first. And by putting a parking lot there, it's not looking out for the people's safety. Plus, you're going to have to put in sidewalks. You're going to have to do ADA. Excuse me. Don't have a cold, gal. I've got allergies horribly. And I also looked up just, under our standards, it doesn't fit. And so before you guys vote to spend $80,000 looking into this, you might want to look into it a little further and see if there's something I missed. I went through all the standards. There's nothing where it would fit there, or make it so it doesn't say shall. And shall means it must be done on River Avenue. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Connie. Do we have anybody else in the public that would like to? Oh,
Sure, I'd like to. Good evening, Mayor Burkett and council members. Here this evening to support the highway realignment proposal. For the record, my name is Joshua Hosford. I live on 28812 Hinkleman Road, Buckley. Abraham Lincoln said things may come to those who wait, but only the things left by those who hustle. Thank you, Mayor and council, for your leadership on this important issue. Having only been hired less than 70 days ago, I also wanted to thank our new city administrator for her hustle. As a resident, business owner, and chamber member, we believe this is the first critical step to creating an increase in quality of life and business opportunities for the community. Thanks.
okay. Thank you. Anyone else at this stage? Oh, Carolyn?
Speak to the drug-related ordinance that's being proposed.
Okay.
Is that okay, Terry?
Got to get up the microphone so we can all hear you.
How's that, Mr. Sundstrom? Is that better?
That's better.
Perfect, perfect. I'm usually loud, so that's good. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Carolyn Robertson Harding, for the record. I live at 407 7th Avenue Northeast in Puyallup. I'm here to support the proposed ordinance amending Buckley Municipal Code 10-68. As some of you know, Eric and I lost a son last August to addiction. Through our family's journey, I've learned a lot about codependency and enabling people and the impact that can it have on their addiction. I support this proposed ordinance for two reasons. First is that holding people accountable for their actions is not mean or unjust. It says, I care enough about you to let you have the consequences of your actions. Our kids grew up here. We have 9 grandchildren. Wayland is a 5th grader at Mountain Meadow Elementary and a 5th generation White River School District kid. There are 6 more coming behind him. We owe it to our families to give our law enforcement officers the tools they need to keep our friends and families safe. Our law enforcement officers work hard every day to uphold the laws of this city, and they need this ordinance to protect us. And I'm asking that you vote yes. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Can I have a comment? I can.
Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
I, the one, echo the comments of
Carolyn. Mrs. Hosford, who came here. As a retired law enforcement officer, I can't even understand how you can even do your job anymore. And so it's with the forward thinking that Chief Alfano worked with the city attorney to give them something for their tool chest to address this. If our own state legislature can't do it, we have to do it locally. It is the scourge of opioids in our society is horrible. I'm sorry for your loss. And I, for one, appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Ron. If anybody else in the like to speak in the first section of the public comment? Okay. On to committee reports, transportation and utilities.
Transportation and Utility Committee met on January 16th. We talked about the final acceptance of the water transmission main access repair project. Public Works had purchased their brush cutter for the mini excavator. The AMR water meter update, they had currently installed 205 AMR water meters as of that meeting. The only hiccup they have is they can't install them during when they're reading the meters. So they have 7 days a month they can't install them. And then the biggest discussion was the SR 410 traffic, which you guys will see the presentation on later, I believe. So I won't waste our time. That was it.
All right, perfect. You can, and just Brandon can message you if he has something.
Yeah, he
Okay.
might be able to unmute. He just got back on.
He asked
me
to speak tonight.
One question.
Oh, no, he still can't unmute.
At the meeting before the previous one, we had been told they had one comment about Jefferson being closed. Now we say we have a lot of comments. I would like to know the number that we're dealing with.
Of public comments so far.
Yeah, the comments about Jefferson from the additional items here.
Okay,
We had one back in December.
okay.
No.
Do we know?
I've received three comments regarding the closure of Jefferson, and I've informed those three commenters that we will be reviewing it before the council in March. With a public hearing likely taking place in April, should you choose to vacate.
Thank you.
Did you have something?
Oh, and by the way, we were promised by our city engineer that we would have the sewer rate update by the end of the year. Back probably 4 or 5 months ago.
Mackenzie, did you have something?
I was just going to show.
Nothing to say,
Fair.
no, nothing else.
Go ahead.
The Community Service Committee met last night. Brandon was, or Councilmember Green was unable to make it. So it's just Councilmember Rose and I with our city administrator, Parks and Rec, and Building and Planning. So we covered a few things. One of these things first on the Parks and Rec actually will be talked about later. That is the Buckley Senior Citizens and Senior Center Cares Audit. That will lead into the Senior Commission. So you'll hear a little bit more about that. But the Senior Commission is just kind of a proposal for an advisory commission to the mayor and us, the city council, focused on the needs of our senior community here. This will be discussed at our next study session together. So further discussions will be held. Next up, we talked about just the Buckley Hall. We had more fee waiver requests and are continuing the conversations about that process and the application. Erin is working very hard on that. So please know how and thank her for all of that. And then the last step with Parks and Rec was actually a pretty exciting one. Erin had a proposal come in from the Enumclaw Pickleball Organization, which is an established nonprofit, and they are willing to
work with us for 10 to 12 covered pickleball courts. This will come forward in the future to the full council to decide if we would want to enter into a MOU to sublease land for them. But I do feel like that would be an awesome opportunity for our city to move towards. And then from building and planning, we did talk about the Hinkleman project. This is that 113 unit townhome project. The SEPA is in process, and currently Emily and her team are discussing mitigation with agencies and with jurisdictions. So WASDOT, ecology agencies like that. The goal is in the future to make Hinkleman a fully functional road. So they are working very hard on that project. In a prior meeting, we talked about the parking regulations downtown. This ordinance was brought before Planning Commission. The hearing will be held on February 6th, and then it's scheduled February 7th for our regular council meeting. So we'll be seeing that in the next couple of weeks. That's soon. And then the last one was Rainier School. Emily and her team are just continuing the conversations of zoning with the understanding that the school may not be here forever or parts of it. So discussions are ongoing with the Rainier School staff and what that will look like. And our next meeting will be February 6th at 4:30. I think I just put it on there because that's usual. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Mackenzie.
Yes.
Marvin.
Hinkleman, 113 unit townhouse proposal. The goal is to make Hinkleman a fully functional road. That's fine, but not at the city expense. We do not own half of that road. We were promised back several years ago when they put the trucking outfit in that we were going to get a fully functional road from Mundy Loss to the trucking place. Guess what? That never happened. And so the taxpayers are on the hook. We have ways of handling this. One of them is for not for us to finance it. And that's kind of what I keep reading in the plan. To me, it's a gift of public funds. You know, period.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
And if you wonder where we have the options, RCW 39510 will take care of it.
Okay.
I just wanted to tell Marvin, I hear him, and that actually was one of our questions. We were asking that we should not be responsible for all of that. So Emily is working with her team.
I've got a lot of information
Okay.
on it if you want it. I can't
Okay.
come to your meeting,
Mhm.
but I can give it to someone.
Yes, I just want you to know we are asking those questions
Okay,
because we see it too.
I do not, if we don't own both sides of the road, we should not be improving that
Yes.
road,
Yes.
period.
And you'll remember, Marvin, the trucking company filed bankruptcy, and if you've ever been
Yeah,
down
but
the,
they got the road done,
Yeah.
or they should have got the road done before they declared bankruptcy.
yep, that's true.
Yeah,
Okay. Community services, council member comments and good of the order. Let's start with Brandon, if he can unmute.
He
If you,
can't.
he
He still
can't, okay.
can't.
Brandon, if you can hear, if you want to type something to Treva, if you have anything, just,
So just so you know, Mayor Brandon will be voting via chat, so I'll let you know what
Okay.
his vote is.
Perfect. okay. All right.
Oh, Brandon says PCRC agenda.
Okay. That probably a lot easier to,
Oh,
Heard from Senator Murray staffers.
Oh, jeez.
They're looking to speak with cities regarding infrastructure projects.
got lots of them. Yeah. Got a main highway. Probably keep, Yeah.
410 came to mind.
Absolutely.
I have the names of the contacts and will get us in contact with them. They seem eager.
Perfect. If you want to give us the thumbs up, oh, there we go.
Also, the Economic Development Board rep position was vacated.
Oh,
I was the alternate, got voted in as the new rep.
Congrats.
Nothing else to report.
perfect. Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time on the PCRC also. Other council member comments? Mackenzie.
I was just going to give another shout out to our Buckley Police Department. They came and had recess at Wilkeson today, Officer Van Huff, and that was just so fun to see him interacting with the kids. And my fifth graders could not stop talking about it and how good he is at football and that he did run with his hand on his gun, so maybe it wouldn't come out. So yeah, they noticed those things. So, but thank you for all the work you're doing.
Super. Marvin.
Just a comment. About 8 months ago, I missed a council meeting. I was down at ER in Puyallup getting a couple of stents stuck in my heart. Now, this last week, I had to go back because they gave me too much blood thinner and that didn't work real well. And so I'm not quite as perky as I was before, but I just want to say I'm back on the road to recovery.
Good,
Good.
good.
Yeah.
Super.
Oh, and the review of council committees.
Yep.
All I want people to be able to do is spend some time looking at this. Not, and, you know, recognizing that there's a lot more good than there is bad in it. It will be a little more work for the council. But that's all I ask, that you review it and that we talk about it at our next study session.
You got it. Okay. Perfect.
One
Councilmember
last
Smith.
thing, just I'd be remiss. I really appreciate the city administrator's updates, and one of those recently was of police department taking possession of the long-awaited replacement patrol vehicles, and I believe I saw one of those today. That Assistant Chief Northam was driving. So those are good. And I had an epiphany here recently, and I don't know why, but I'd like to study this in an upcoming study session. We're talking about revitalization of downtown. And I had, my epiphany was an archway right at the trail at Main, coming in, going eastbound on Main. Similar to what we have in Wilkeson, but something that says, here, you're coming to Buckley. And here we go. Something I'd like to throw out there for everybody's comment, and I don't think that's a high dollar item, you know, but I think it done the right way. In that area, we have at Thunderbird Park, a nice totem pole or two. And in that theme, in that genre, if you will, I would like us to think about that as we're trying to revitalize downtown.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Any other council member comments? Good to the order? Brandon's got it. Okay. All right. And I'll just save the mayor's report here till the end. Just briefly, I went down, Courtney was there, a bunch of us. Matt was there. We went down for the groundbreaking for the new trail bridge across the White River. And it was well attended. It was muddy and wet, but it went well. And I invited former Mayor Johnson down to do the actual shovel groundbreaking because she put all the work in. I just showed up at the end. So and that was it. That's all I have. So we're gonna get into this review of council committees that Marvin just spoke about. Tonight, we are scheduled to review council committees. Right now, we have 3 committees currently, as you know, for the public and by the way, we're also on YouTube first night tonight. For those of you who don't know, we're on
We
the
are
big movie screen.
Streaming live on YouTube.
Yes, 30-minute delay,
30-second.
30-second. So currently we have 3 committees: admin, finance and public safety, public works and utilities, or streets and utilities, as we used to call it, and community services. I wanted to point out that we also recently had a request to establish council liaisons with outside organizations. And I think it's worth exploring that. This conversation is likely not going to get settled tonight, as you probably all know. Courtney and I would like to look at other cities and start to put together a draft procedure for the council committee appointments and what the new council committees could look like in liaisons if we choose to go that route. I would like to hear from each of the council members tonight. I would recommend that we consider a motion to limit council comments to about 3 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. For this topic tonight. That'd be a motion, et cetera. And then hear from each council member on what they'd like to share, so we can kind of get our arms around what that might look like. So we shall proceed. Councilmember Smith.
I'd make a motion, we move the entire topic to a study session.
Okay. Does that sound good? Second? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, Brandon's up there.
Said I.
Okay, thank you, council.
I'd like to make one comment though.
Go.
Good idea. Thank you.
All right. Consent agenda, and Treva's going to give us the breakdown of our new consent agenda for those of you in the audience and on the World Wide Web and all that. This is our consent agenda has changed from the way it's been for many decades, starting tonight. So
In the past, you've usually only seen council minutes and vouchers, claims, payroll on the consent agenda. Our code allows for a lot more to be approved on the consent agenda. So if there's anything on the consent agenda that you actually want to talk about, you're welcome to amend the consent agenda to move that item off, and then it will become the first item on the regular agenda. Otherwise, the consent agenda will be approved as normal, no comments, the whole thing at one time.
Item DB, I would like to go to the regular meeting.
item which? D?
B.
DB.
So item B and D.
Oh, B and D both?
No,
Now,
just item B.
restroom and trail parking.
So to amend the
So
consent
D and B.
agenda, we'll have a motion for the consent agenda and then move to amend the consent agenda, vote on the amendment. And then
Okay.
we'll go automatically to item B.
Second, his motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Brandon's an aye.
So next you'll move to approve the amended consent
Amended,
agenda.
Yeah.
Move to approve the amended consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Got Brandon also. Okay,
All right, so the first item on your regular agenda will be the restroom and trail parking lot amendment professional services contract.
everybody's got to get to it here.
Move to approve the revised engineering services proposal for the design and construction management of the Foothills Trail parking lot project.
The second,
Second.
right, discussion. Amanda.
So Courtney, can you speak to what Connie was talking about with what she stated in her comments? Because I do remember when we talked about this a long time ago, and not only Connie, but myself, like, we were concerned about safety, about why we needed one there. I just, I don't remember that we wanted to go through with it. Maybe I'm missing something at all. But can you speak to what she was referring to with the Buckleyman's, the BMC 1928040, and just some of the things she Sure. shared. Sorry. So no, for that, I'm gonna actually tee up
Okay.
our city engineer down.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening. So I don't have the exact timeline, but the city council approved a contract with Grant Osborne to design the parking lot at Jefferson. That parking lot was to not include a restroom and did not include electrical vehicle charging stalls / stations. Grant Osborne prepared the design, prepared the documents based on that site plan. Then the city council and Parks Committee. I'm not saying the right committee name. Is it? Parks
Community
and Rec?
Services.
Community Services Committee elected to change the parking lot to add a restroom and to add the electrical vehicle charging stations. So the way the restroom works is it's a procurement that the city ordered a prefab restroom. That restroom is showing up next month. The utilities are about to be installed to serve the restroom. And this amendment to the Grant Osborne contract is to revise to do the assistance with selection of the restroom. We worked with Aaron, picked all the colors and textures and fixtures and features of the whole restroom before it was ordered from a company called CXD in Spokane. The city has already paid for this. It's coming and will be placed so that the parking lot can be built around it. This contract is for Grant Osborne to complete the bid documents to build the actual parking lot with the asphalt parking lot and the connection to the trail. And it also includes construction management of those same facilities. So in my mind, the city has already decided this parking lot is going in and has spent a significant amount of money towards this. So I guess, to use a bit of a saying, the ship may have sailed on the should this parking lot go here or not. I'm not saying that the city can't proceed with this, but I think from this point, what's going to happen, I believe, is the water and sewer and electrical services are going to be installed for this restroom. It's going to come and get placed by a crane. If the city council wants to not move forward with building the parking lot, I suppose it could be a restroom and no parking lot, but the history, and I can't speak to the exact standards and municipal code citations from Ms. Bender, but I do believe that was looked at by previous administrations and by the majority of this council as well in prior decisions that were made that got us to this point.
Okay. I'm just wondering, is Jefferson going to remain open then?
That is a question for the council. And so there is an option to vacate Jefferson. It's a formal process that includes a public hearing and then a decision by the city council to vacate Jefferson. Right now, it remains closed because we have a couple of ongoing construction projects.
Right.
And then in March, we'll be bringing forward a proposal to vacate Jefferson and then hold a public hearing, and it will be up to the council to decide whether or not to vacate.
I guess I'm just struggling with why we need another parking lot right there. I don't understand why we need a parking lot right next to 410 when we have all that parking. And then when it says that the city elected to revise the original plan improvements to include the restroom, that was the city doing it and not coming through the council, correct? Like you guys revised it and then purchased it.
I don't believe so.
It did go through council? Okay.
Okay.
75,000 of funding coming from the county to help pay for this restroom.
Okay.
In the fact that it is a.
Mark,
Aaron.
Councilmember Senstrom.
Yeah, Aaron. Sorry. Can you
There
start
is,
over?
I believe 75,000 coming from the county for the restroom portion of the trailhead, with the caveat that it is a trailhead parking lot for trail access increased in Pierce County.
Thanks, Aaron. Anything else, Amanda?
No, I'm in favor of a restroom. I'm just not in favor of a parking lot, but
Okay. All right. But you got your questions answered.
yes, I got my questions
Okay.
answered. Yep.
Ron.
So what I would say is, Mayor, in your report, you reported on going to the groundbreaking ceremony. We saw that on Facebook, and this long-awaited connection of the Foothills Trail across the White River into Enumclaw. We had approved the Dr. Tate Pavilion along the trail. And I'm in full support of vacating Jefferson. There's been some discussion on Facebook about this. People keep up with what's going on. The reason why it'll be okay to have a parking lot there with the bathroom, if we vacate Jefferson, it will be a turning on to Jefferson only to get to that parking lot. There'll be bollards there before the trail. Nobody's going to be able to come westbound off of River on Jefferson because it'll be vacated. So the only thing we'll be doing there, and the trail will be protected by the bollards, is allowing people to go to the trailhead. The bathroom is for obvious use. Enumclaw's trailhead at Warner has no protections on Warner. None on that trail. None. We will have protections on the trail. There's no protections on that trail. And unless you're a careful driver and are cognizant of pedestrians, they run a real risk there in Enumclaw where they put that trailhead parking lot. We will not have that risk by vacating Jefferson.
Okay.
And I think that is the salient point of the whole discussion.
If I may.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Dom.
Ron, I'm impressed that you remember the preliminary design that showed the bollards in front of there. That's exactly what it is. And the timing, as Courtney alluded to, that the vacation is going to come before the council prior to. So this parking lot is not intended to go out to bid until maybe May, June timeframe. And really, if the council doesn't approve the Jefferson vacation, which would allow for the closure of the road, because I don't believe legally you can close public right of way in that manner permanently per RCWs, I believe we have found. So that's the intended sequence. It's not if Jefferson's open, I don't believe the city is going to authorize the construction contractor to build that parking lot because of the safety concern of having that concern there. So
Okay,
just wanted to add that.
Marvin.
I think in a way, having the restroom there is a good deal. Because it's hard to get to. If we vacate Jefferson, only the people using the trail will be able to use it. There will be less vandalism, less everything. The big thing is on vacating Jefferson, we will cut down the traffic on 410. The stopping traffic, we will keep things moving better. And I can't say I'm against the restroom being located there. I'm just against the parking lot being located there.
Okay. Dom, can you talk just for the audience as well, and then maybe for council members as well? The plan is where to sever it and where the access will come to if the parking lot goes.
Where to sever Jefferson?
Jefferson, yeah, if it's approved.
So if the planned location of the parking lot is between the trail and 410 to the south of Jefferson. So if the Jefferson right of way is vacated, bollards will be installed on the 410 side of the trail. There's that green, the green painted crossing there. The bollards will be installed on the west side, the 410 side of the trail. But traffic from 410 would be able to come on and off 410 just to get into the parking lot, just to get out of the parking lot. There was talk of just ideas that have been thrown out in the past about why it might be good to have a parking lot. Is they talked about, I think, ski buses that go up to Crystal that you could come pick up in that lot. So we had a way for those kind of buses or big vans to turn around in there. It's intended to be right there and to be used. And there's been in the past, there was something about, well, if somebody gets out of their car and runs out to 410, there is an intent to be a fence along there. So, I mean, they're in the parking lot, they're coming out there, there's direct access to the trail there. And then it would be on the other side of Jefferson, it would be closed at River. So if you're coming northbound on River, you're not going to be able to get out to 410 on Jefferson. You're going to have to come all the way up to Main.
Yep.
So there's not, you can't
There'll
get
be
in
no
that
through
way.
traffic anymore.
No,
on Jefferson.
that'll be closed there. It's yet to be determined if there would be bollards there as well. And then I believe the intent there is to maybe for the concerts in the park, or Aaron knows more about that, but it gives some more flexibility for the use of that land for a more, recreational along the trail as opposed to that cut through, which at this point in time, it can be dangerous, as Councilmember Smith alluded to. I mean, you look at Main Street, I mean, someone takes a turn off there and there's a project upcoming. It'll be constructed, I believe, next year. The city got TIB funding for making that crossing safer. So it's a kind of series to make each of these crossings as safe as possible. Not everyone can be close to traffic, but that's the hope in this, a little bit of a step-by-step approach.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Dom. Kenny.
So if we don't put the parking lot in, we lose the $75,000 grant that they gave us for the bathroom.
I believe that's correct. Aaron can speak to that.
We would have to double check with the county, but that's how it was allocated to us as a trailhead bathroom.
So then we'd be on the hook for funding it all ourselves.
Possibly, we'd have to look in it with the county.
Okay.
Also, just real quick, on March 7th, we will be hearing also from the Foothills Trail Association, the Dr. Tate Plaza that they currently have proposed at the location behind Wally's. They want to move to this new trailhead location called Buckley Station, is the name that they threw out. So we'll see if they've maybe changed it a little bit, but trying to create more of a center for the Buckley Trailhead at that location with the parking lot associated.
McKenzie.
Do you feel like parking at the youth center is like adequate right now, or do you feel like you need more and this would help right there?
During the summer events, we definitely do need more. I think with the adding of the basketball court, we have another issue of just people wanting to be in that zone. Also, I believe it will help create kind of a park zone. You know, when you go into Ording and you're on the trail, it's obvious when you enter a park zone. Currently, the bikers come speeding in. If we start to bring it in kind of like a hug and make it feel like a park zone that you're entering as you're into Buckley more, starting at Veterans Memorial and Inn, I think it would be great. I also think it'd be very helpful for veterans events at that memorial to have more adequate parking.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. Marvin.
You know, one of the things of following something through when you get a lot of resistance to it tells you that maybe you should sit back and think about it a little bit. I like former council member Bender's idea of moving the parking lot down about, you know, where the incinerator sits? Right where the trail swings around. There's a spot there, be a perfect parking lot.
Okay.
And I think we should explore that before we try to ram 30 more parking spaces into an area that already has 100 parking spaces that aren't being used.
And we're not limited to one parking lot. We can build another one. If whether we go through with this one or not, we can build another parking lot.
That's fine, except where do we find the new $300,000 to do that? That's the problem.
Okay. Brandon chimed in at all? I don't want to leave him out. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Dom. Appreciate it. Any other questions, comments on this? Before we vote on it? Good.
What's the vote for?
It's to approve that contract.
To approve the contract with Gray and Osborne.
Okay.
It's right here.
Nothing from Brandon. Okay.
Oh.
All right. All in favor of approving the contract, vote aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Brandon voted yes.
All right, so we have consent agenda.
Done.
Is
So
done.
now we're on to the public hearing.
Okay. Item 1 for the regular agenda is the public hearing for the sewer latecomers agreement. And Marvin, we probably want to hear from you. Or we,
Oh, we have Phil.
oh, Phil.
Yeah,
Yes.
Mayor, if I could just interject, it's as Courtney mentioned, we are continuing this hearing to February 14th. And the reason why is just simply because the version of the latecomer agreement that was put into the council packet, unfortunately, is the wrong one. It's missing a bunch of mandated paragraphs by state law. And we did have a much more current version that Marvin had already seen. It just didn't get put in the packet. And if we have some property owners out there that were looking at the packet, and decided maybe not to attend the public hearing because they like the way the agreement used to be written, we just have to make sure we didn't, mislead anybody. And so for that reason only, we're just going to re-advertise, and hopefully it'll all be, done with at the next council meeting. That's what's going on.
Okay. Thank you, Phil. Did you get that, Marvin? There was some typos in what went out, so we're just
No
gonna,
problem.
so we're gonna have a hearing tonight and we'll have another hearing.
Okay,
On the
when we
14th.
have the public hearing, I'll take my mufflers off and shut my eyes.
Okay, perfect. All right,
So are you gonna move into the public hearing at
yeah,
6:50?
yeah, as of 6:50 this evening, we're gonna recess the council meeting and enter into the public hearing. Marvin has recused himself as he's a part of this. And we can start with whomever in the public would like to go first. If they'd like to comment on this. Yeah,
I would just like an explanation of what.
yep, please to the mic, yep.
Yeah,
And please state.
State your name and
my
address.
My name is Dan Shannon. I'm the brother of Kevin Shannon. He owns property on Sheets Road.
Okay.
I'm here to represent him. He just wants an explanation of what this agreement's all about.
Okay.
Because he has 5 acres that's there that's undeveloped. And we're just trying to get information about what this is all about and what it would entail and what would the cost be and how many hookups that we'd be entitled to, et cetera. So
Okay.
we haven't got an overview yet. We didn't get that much out of the paperwork that was sent. So
Okay.
if somebody could give us an overview, we'd appreciate that.
Okay. Super. Thank you.
I recommend that we hold the public hearing, close the public hearing, and then respond to any comments.
Okay.
You'd
Oh,
like-
wait, we'll get to that as soon as we close the public hearing. So Connie?
Name's Connie Bender, 1915 Ryan Road. Actually, I live on Sheets. I'm not too far from you guys. The only disagreement I have with this latecomer agreement that we received as individuals, there's nothing on there telling anybody that live on Sheets that they will only be not only paying Mr. Sunstern back, but also paying Perkins Prairie and Sutters that put it in. So that, which is Perkins Prairie should have been paid off by now. It's many houses they built. How much the amount is going to be. And also the new development that's gone on Ryan, and I can never remember the name of it. Pardon?
Blueberry Farm.
No, not the Blueberry Farm. That's another one. As it reads in our latecomer agreement, I did look it up, that anybody that hooks up also has to pay for all branches. What do you guys mean by all branches? Is that now going to be the Blueberry Farm and the one, I think it's Fetter's old property that's going to be having? So are we going to end up with 4 people to pay? 5 companies to pay back? That can make it to the point of nobody can afford to do it. And that is something that should have been told to us. And I would like to see some documentation on that, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Connie. Anybody else like to speak?
So my name is Patrick McCleary. I live on 23505 118th Street, Cordis in Buckley. So I'm a taxpayer. So I purchased a property on Sheets Road as well from Larry Roloff, which actually came with their receipt included was a sewer hookup. Okay, I own a sewer company. I actually talked to Courtney about this. And I'm curious. So running from Ryan Road down Sheets Road is a 2-inch line, correct? And you got 13 homes proposed here. Okay. At the end of Ryan Road, is that a 2-inch line? So how much pressure are we actually going to get for 13 homes at 200 gallons? What's the requirement here? 225 a day on a 2-inch line? Very little. What is the long-term plan? Is there eventually going to be a 12 down or an 8 at least down to Ryan? And so my plan was to wait for an 8 or a 12 to come to the end of Ryan to Sheets, right? And possibly down, keep going down. And then I was going to tie in with a 6 to my property. So zone R8. Okay, so we're all set for, I got 4.36 acres, so maybe 15 lots. Okay, so why would I pay this when I want to run a 6? Okay, and am I gonna have to pay again to run that 6? And then do I want to charge the neighbors again for a 6? You understand?
Yep.
Or an 8. It should actually be an 8. It should probably be a 12. So everything down there, I'm told pretty much all the way down is R8, correct? I haven't seen the updated plan. So how many lots is that going to equal up to? 50, 100? Okay, so how many lots can we hook in on a 2-inch line? Not many. So why are we paying this when we're going to have to pay it again That's my question. And I do have a receipt that I already own a hookup, paid back in 2017.
Okay.
All right,
All right.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Right. Anybody else like to speak on the latecomers agreement?
Looks like attorney.
Oh, Bill.
Oh, yeah, just one procedural comment. I think Courtney had mentioned closing the hearing and then answering questions. I think for purposes of clarity that, to the extent possible, staff should answer the questions while the public hearing is open. So that's all part of the evidence that's put together as part of the hearing. So I would have Dom or whoever's going to answer the questions, answer those questions and have council members ask any other questions they have. And once you have all the information you need, then close the public hearing.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Let's go back. Do you want to start with Shannon? To answer Mr. Shannon's questions?
Sure.
Just kind of an overview of how many connections and.
Yeah, if we have any additional, so if that's everyone's made comment that wants to make comment.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, yep.
Some of us don't even know what a latecomers agreement is. So can we have a overview of what this means? I'm totally. The gentleman that just spoke made some good points.
Understood. So the Buckley Code and state law allows a developer to recover costs for installation of improvements. In this case, it is a sewer latecomers agreement, which happens to be the most common type of latecomers agreement in the city of Buckley. This is the fourth one that I'm aware of. And it allows the developer to recover proportionate cost, pro rata share of what the developer paid to install it based on extra available capacity. So the three other ones that have been done in the city of Buckley are Perkins Prairie. They installed a sewer line along Ryan Road, a gravity line, a 10-inch sewer line that benefited more than Perkins Prairie. Now, all of Perkins Prairie phases 1 through 4 are built. All of it does not flow south to Ryan. Part of it flows north to Mason Spruce intersection. The second latecomers agreement that was done was called the Sutter Latecomers Agreement. Sean Sutter and his wife Julie, I believe, installed a 2-inch pressure sewer line on Ryan Road from the end of the Perkins Prairie gravity line out to the east to and past Sheets Road.
Almost to Sheets, or no, past Sheets and almost to Clink.
Correct,
Right.
almost to Clink. I'll get back to that one in a second because Connie had a question about how many piggybacks could a property potentially pay. The third latecomers agreement was for the sewer lift station on Spiketon Road for the White River Meadows development. They installed a very deep sewer lift station, and sewer lift stations are quite costly, and they installed a deep sewer line to allow quite a few properties to drain to that, including the plats of Jager Estates, now known as Emmons Glen, the plat of that's now known as Prairie Creek Farms. Those all drain there. White River Meadows drains there. Basically, all of Spiketon Road, almost down to the Spiketon Culvert, is going to drain to this lift station, which, by the way, is the only lift station right now in the city of Buckley. Mr. Sundstrom installed a 2-inch pressure sewer line on Sheets Road from Ryan down to his property on the west side of Sheets Road, south a ways. So he installed that all. He paid for all the permit fees, all the engineering review, the construction, meeting all the city requirements, and he paid out all that money. Per the city code, he informed the city he wants it to enter into a latecomers agreement. So the public works director and the city engineer review that, and we help draw the boundary, and then we have to look at the downstream capacity. So this ties into the Sutter sewer line. So a 2-inch pressure sewer line with grinder pumps on there. The city standard is a Environment 1 E1 grinder pump. Their published data for that grinder pump system is that a 2-inch pressure line has enough capacity for 18 single-family residential connections to tie into that line. It's not all 18 operating at the same time. They have this algorithm where one comes on, even if they all come on, somebody waits until enough pressure clears and it goes. At the time that Mr. Sundstrom installed his line, which is a 2-inch line also, which has capacity for 18 connections to it, there's only 13 left because 5 are already on the Sutter line. So we couldn't allow 18 on Marvin's line because there's only 5 are already gone. So only 13 are left. So what we did was we took the areas that could directly tie into this line on both sides of Sheets Road, including Mr. McCleary's property, including Mr. Shannon's property. And we took each of these properties and we looked at, well, what's a reasonable way they could develop? And we only put 1 or 2 houses on each lot. And because you try to balance between somebody who shells out the money up front to be able to recover the costs, and what if we put the zoning on every one, first of all, it'd be way more than 13. So we were getting to that number of 13, and we put 2 on the bigger lots and 1 on the smaller lots, and 1 that already had a house, we put 1. And we try to do our best to figure out what's reasonable that's going to happen. And so that's what the agreement is prescribed. It has the city's been through this process before. It has a 20-year recovery period. It has it divvies up the costs, and the developer has to pay their share. So we subtract out what, if it was all divided up by 13, and one's already used by Mr. Sundstrom, the remaining, the costs are there. So the letter that we sent out to these property owners identified them that they're in this area, and then this is their pro rata share if they choose to connect. If they choose to connect to this line, this is what you would pay in this latecomers. Connie is correct that it is, I think, a good piece of information to let them know, well, if you connect to this, you also have to pay the Sutter charge and the Perkins Prairie charge because you're tying into those lines as well. In terms of this is not meant to serve the ultimate development down there.
Stopgap.
It was a way for Marvin to get sewer to his property to tie in. The ultimate plan is for the deep sewer that's right now on McNeely and Mason to come down through the east side of Perkins Prairie 5, through Perkins Prairie 6, used to be known as Mia's Meadow, to Ryan Road. It's a 12-inch line. It's going to be deeper. It's going to hit Ryan Road. Then someone's going to have to extend it east on Ryan Road past Sheets, and ultimately it can develop per the zoning. I mean, these 2-inch lines can't serve the zoning, but they do get, if Mr. McCleary, I believe was his name, if he wants to develop and he wants to put 6 lots there and there's 13 remaining, and he can tie in for those 6 lots, or he can wait until someone else brings the sewer line, the deep sewer down. That's what the comp plan has, because the intent is not to put a lift station down there. The intent is to serve it by gravity, and we've done the calcs. It's going to be deep enough to serve a lot of that area. So there will be larger lines. I mean, that's the ultimate development. If a property on this list does not want to build a house, does not want sewer, then no harm, no foul. You know, there's no payment. This isn't a lien on their property. It's if they decide to get sewer. Because the thought is, if they decide to get sewer and Mr. Sundstrom hadn't built that line, and Mr. Sutter and his wife hadn't built their line, and Perkins Prairie hadn't built their line, you got a long way to go. You know, you can spend 150 grand putting your own pressure line all the way down, 2,000 feet away. So that's, it's not that different from if a developer develops a plat and puts in the whole sewer system, and then you buy a lot, you're paying for the water system, the roads, the sewer, that the developer built all that. They just didn't put a house on a lot, and you buy the house, you have everything to serve it. And there's quite a bit of cost, associated with that. Let's see. So Mr. Shannon, I hope your questions.
I have another question.
Sure, go ahead up to the mic.
Yeah. So the way, as I'm listening to this, the way I understand it is this fee will tie us into one service for Mr. Sundstrom, but before we actually hook up, we may have to pay 2 other entities.
There are 2 other entities, and we have the costs, and we can distribute exactly to the same property owners what those other costs are.
So before any landowner would make a decision that they want to do this, they'd like to know what the total cost would be to hook up, and that would include not only Mr. Sundstrom, but 2 other entities, correct?
Correct.
And the city standard general
Okay.
facility charge, which covers the treatment plant mostly, yes.
Well, that would be helpful for my brother to decide to do this, what the total, otherwise you're buying a pig in the poke. You don't even know exactly what it's going to cost you. You're just buying 1/3.
Yeah, this is just the latecomers agreement for Sundstrom. And should somebody want to build a house or 6
Right.
houses or what have you, yes, all that would lay out. At this point, we're not talking about all that, even though it's in place. This is just for the Sundstrom because he put that.
Oh, I understand
Yeah,
that,
okay.
but before you hooked up, you'd have to know what the costs are. So you'd have the capital to pay this one and Mr. Sundstrom, correct? So do you
Yes.
have those numbers?
I do.
Okay, and will they be included in the new packet that gets sent out to the landowners?
I believe that'd be appropriate. I don't have an issue sending
Okay.
that out as.
We just like to know what the total cost is going to be if we pull the trigger on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Sorry, yeah, one more question.
Yeah, we don't have. Go ahead, Pat.
Nothing. Since I already have a hookup that's already been paid for through the city of Buckley, then would I have, if I just wanted to do one house, then would I have to participate in this latecomer? It's already paid.
You would, because you need to cover the cost to connect to the system. These are costs to connect to the system. Someone else brought out the sewer to your property, so you could connect right in front of your property. Without all those improvements. you
And then
wouldn't-
should I not
wouldn't
be
have that.
reimbursed from the city for the hookup that I bought that's not applicable?
It is applicable, so the city had, yeah.
The 2 hookups.
So the city has a general facilities charge, which in the case of the sewer utility. Right, it's for the wastewater treatment plant primarily. So when your sewage goes to the. I don't remember what it costs, $6 million that the city's still paying off for the upgrades to that wastewater treatment plant. That's primarily what the hookup's for. Is for a new development to help pay for that.
So that was, he paid, or that person prior to you
So
paid for the general facilities charge.
That's part of the reason why I bought the property. I didn't buy the property to build a house. I'm a developer. Okay, and I was waiting for that 8, 10, or 12 to come to the end of Ryan, and I already had a bid to run past to our property and all the way down the road if need be.
And you still have that option. I mean, it's coming, that 12 inch. I can't say exactly when, but it's planned and in the comp plan, and that's supposed to be.
Okay, and then
constructed.
is the secondary plan to run a 6 or an 8 down sheets then, I take it?
It would be an 8 down sheet.
Okay, so again, I'm repeating myself and forgive me. So if we do that, then we're still gonna be obligated to pay an additional hookup fees on top of this?
No, that's
No.
only if you tie into the 2 inch pressure line. If the gravity line is built down Ryan and down Sheets and you tie
So
into
we're gonna have
that,
to unhook on the 2 inch and rehook into the 8 inch.
if you're already hooked up to the 8 inch, to the 2 inch and the 8 inch gravity line, you'll have already paid to hook up to that 2 inch.
Okay, so this is not applicable. So the 14,000 that was spent on our behalf.
No, it is, it covers the general facilities charge for the city.
And
every
the
house-
Perkins Prairie Latecomer
Okay,
and the Sutter's Latecomer.
okay, so that is already paid, okay.
Yeah,
So I can hook into the system. The 2 inch.
You can hook into the 2 inch on Ryan. But if you want to hook into the 2 inch on Sheets, there's the additional charge for.
Yeah, there's one.
Just his charge.
Just his,
Correct.
I hadn't seen this, sir.
Yeah, it sounds like you've already paid, or somebody prior to you already paid the Sutter section, the Perkins Prairie section.
You bought a sewer hookup.
Correct, and the general facilities charge. So
Right.
now it would be your option to either run all the way down
Yes,
Sheets to Ryan or tie in to this latecomers agreement.
yes.
Either of those two options.
Or I can wait.
Or, yeah, there's always that option.
Correct.
Or you can run an 8 inch.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, for the. Oh, Connie's got a question.
Mayor, please make sure they're speaking all the way into the microphone.
I have no idea
Otherwise it
why.
doesn't record.
Connie, make sure you're speaking in the mic.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Nope, you're good.
Not used to doing that anymore. Why wasn't there an 8 inch run down Ryan? I know the Sutters, they wanted to run an 8 inch. And they were told, no, a 2 inch. Now the 2 inch that comes down, they weren't worried about the cost. The 2 inch that came down, I don't know what the difference in the price would have been. But now we all hook up to that, or whoever wants to at this point. We go on the grinder system. Now, say this gentleman decides to run an 8 inch. Because he wants to develop more homes. So now where it's going to cost us again to hook up to his line because he's going to want to get reimbursed. We've paid Mr. Sundstrom because he needs to get reimbursed. And we're no longer on the grinder system that we paid a lot of money for. So where does any of this make any sense? Monetarily for anybody.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You have to get to the mic.
So. The 10 inch gravity line that Perkins Prairie installed. From the church to. A little bit east of Sargent Street. That line is. Not very deep, and at the easterly end of that line. It is 4 feet deep. If you keep extending a gravity line, which for a 10 inch has a minimum slope of about 0.3%, it's going to come out of the ground. It cannot serve that area much to the east of Sargent Street. That's why Sutter put in a pressure line, is because they could not gravity feed from their house out towards Clink all the way over to Sargent. It physically doesn't work. I mean, water runs downhill in a pipe that's sloped downhill. It physically does not work. That's why it was a 2 inch. The ultimate intent is to bring a deep line from Mason to Ryan along Ryan. Once that deep line is installed, which is a condition of the plat of Perkins Prairie 6, which used to be called Mia's Meadow, which is Fetters, I believe. Yep. It's a condition of their plat that they carry that across. So we are not aware that there's a latecomers associated with that deeper sewer line. Technically, if you do something deeper than you need to, you can. Once that line is down Ryan Road, if someone connects to that line, then they don't pay the Perkins Prairie and Sutters or Sunstrom latecomers. If they're already hooked up to the Sunstrom pressure line or the Sutter pressure line, when gravity comes along as part of the construction requirements, you know, we're trying to get everybody off of the grinder pumps because it costs a lot to put in. But we can, I mean, the basic premise is if you want sewer to develop or you want sewer service to your house, you have options. You either connect into the line right in front of your house and pay the officially recorded and on the up and up per code, per state law, per city of Buckley prior, per Phil approving it all, and pay what it takes or pay what the fee is, which is all recorded. This isn't just some arbitrary fee. It's all calculated out. Or build the line yourself. Build a 2-inch line from your house to wherever you can tie into. You can come and get a right-of-way permit. You can come and do it. I can tell you it's going to be more expensive. You have that option. If you want to put an 8-inch gravity line down Sheets Road and down Ryan Road, you're going to have to change it to a 12-inch from Ryan all the way up to Mason and over to McNeely, which, by the way, is about 26 feet deep at the intersection of Mason and McNeely. Expensive stuff. Mr. Arsano can probably tell you how expensive that stuff is. I can tell you how expensive it is. So the intent is this is a cost-effective option for you to get sewer service to your one house, 4 houses. And by the way, if somebody uses up all the capacity in Marvin's line, you don't have the option to hook up at the fees that were there. It's first come, first served. Once those 13 are gone, they're gone. You have to wait for the deep sewer.
Once the 13 are gone, you're back to running your own 2-inch line all the
You
way.
could do that. You could do that. So the total costs associated with this were $72,000. That's what's getting divvied up. And so, you know, the cost for, I think, the Perkins Prairie line, Mr. Patrick here, sorry, I forgot your name. McCleary, Patrick McCleary, he has it on there. It's about $600 for the Perkins Prairie. It's $5,000, I think, for Sutter. And then the GFC is $8,700 these days. It goes up every year. So the fact that Mr. McCleary has bought this, I can tell you the GFC has gone up since 2017 significantly. So the fact that you have that is probably a deal from that standpoint. But to Ms. Bender's questions about kind of where does it stop, it's when you hook up, you know, it's what's in place. And I agree with Mr. Shannon, we could have been more clear on what the true cost is. And we can say, hey, I'll send out the letters again saying, hey, this is a GFC cost. If you hook into this one, this is your cost. Here's your other 2 costs right now.
Yeah.
And that's what we know right now.
And the general facilities charge, we'll get it all in there.
And the general facilities charge. And that way it'll be clear. And actually it's probably a good thing that maybe the language in the agreement wasn't quite right, and we can keep it on so we can answer these questions, inform the people that are within it and are being affected by it. But you know, the overall intent, I know it doesn't seem that way if you're sitting there, but the overall intent is to provide a cost-effective way. You know, otherwise, You know, because the other way it can be done, honestly, is Marvin could have got his neighbors together and they split the costs and didn't have to go through this agreement.
Sure.
They split the costs and then no one else can hook up to that line. And by the way, this line that's in the right of way, part of this agreement, it's a city line. It's no longer privately owned. It's a public utility in the public right of way. And so it's,
Thank you. I think trying to explain it, but there's a lot of moving parts. Okay. Super.
Good job.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay. Did you want to speak too?
No, I was just saying. I don't even know, again, because I got
Nope.
interest in this, but.
No, go ahead. No, you're part of the public.
I'm Junior, and
Yep.
so 881 Sheets Road, and I was just gonna say, if they don't want to hook in, you can go to septic, if you can get your land to perk, so.
And I don't think we even allow that in the city limits. As per our code.
It depends on if you have the ability to connect to sewer within a certain amount of
Right,
feet.
right.
200 feet.
Okay, okay. Mr. Smith.
I just want to thank Mr. Miller. I just learned a whole lot, and the way you presented that. Was latecomers agreements for dummies. And it was done very well. And anybody who's listening to this can understand totally what that meant. Thank you.
Kenny.
I got a question for Dom. So if they, once they do this, they pay all their facility charges, say they do upgrade that to a 12-inch main, when they run through there, they don't have to pay an additional fee to reconnect their side sewer. It'd already be part of that capital improvement project or whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
You'd automatically lay a stub to that property line. So they're not double paying. If they would have to pay from their house to their side sewer, but they wouldn't actually have to tie back into the street to replace their sewer, correct?
Correct.
So they're not double paying for it.
Correct.
You're only
Yeah.
paying one
What-
facility charge and that's it.
Once
And
you're,
their latecomers fees.
correct, once you're tied into the system, anything that comes along out, once you've all paid up and everything. Yeah, something comes in and gets improved, they just tie that into that line as a part of that upgrade. Okay. Hopefully we answered a bunch of questions and we'll be back here on the 14th for the same thing again. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully we got your questions answered.
One more question.
Sure.
If it's first come, first served, how many?
Oh, yeah.
Can you
come up to
please
the
speak in the mic?
If it's first come, first serve, how many can a 5-acre parcel purchase?
It depends on your zoning, but up to 13, right? Until those hookups are claimed.
Yeah, you could buy 1 or 13 or anywhere in between unless somebody else takes them ahead of that.
Okay, so what's the deadline as far as pulling the trigger on this? Once you've done your due diligence and have all your information, what's the period and say, okay, I want to get 5 for 5 acres because it's zoned enough to have 13 lots? I mean, how would we go about doing that?
Probably submit a letter. Go ahead.
I think that this is something we should respond to as in the staff report that we'll have on the 14th. My thought would be, it would be part of the plat process. So when you're going through your preliminary plat process or short plat, in that case, we would include the sewer hookup and you would pay that fee then, but we can definitely look into that and respond.
I guess my question is let's say we want to develop later on, but we want to hook in, we want to make sure we pay for those sewer hookups now, but not develop till later.
Mhm.
You follow?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, so that's what we need to know.
We'll have an answer for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Okay. Oh, we need to get back into, we're going to close the public hearing if there's nothing further and re-enter the council meeting at 7:25. Okay, staff reports. Start with Courtney.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, Dom isn't getting much of a break tonight.
Can I make a comment? We're not.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Well, before Courtney starts, go ahead.
That's a lot of 3 minutes.
Yeah. You're right.
You understand?
You're right.
If you're gonna limit the time, you have to limit everyone.
Point taken.
I mean,
Yep.
it isn't just the council member.
You're right.
Robert.
You're right.
We should have 3-minute limits with a timer.
Got it.
We were in the hearing, which is different than but
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. So the first item that we have up for you tonight is the City Hall remodel update, and I'm gonna, Dom, if you want to come in. You can just sit up here, yeah. So since we last met, which I think was on October 11th, the design team, Gray and Osborne, as well as Tovani Hart, has been working to finalize the design and provide a little bit more a clearer idea of what the full cost is going to be before we go to bid. I wanted to do two things tonight. First, talk about our next steps so you all understand the timeline and that you are involved in a portion of it. And then secondly, we'll go over the adjusted costs. So when we last spoke, I don't think it was made clear that a project of this nature includes several reviews. So because of the site plan, as well as its location in the historic downtown district, we have a design review as well as a site plan review. That includes a total of 3 public hearings, the way that our code is currently written. And that's something that'll come up again in March. Big study session that night to talk about if we want it to be changed in the future. But for this project, because we've vested under this code, this is the way that we will be proceeding. So for the design or the site plan review goes in front of the city's hearing examiner, and they make the decision regarding or recommendation regarding the site plan review. And then the design review goes in front of both the planning commission and in front of the city council for review and to confirm that it complies with our design review criteria. Based off of all of those public hearings, we're anticipating that the soonest that this will be approved by City Council would be March 14th, 2023. So we're looking at over the next month and a half, having a series of public hearings in front of the public to allow them to have input. And you can see if you've traveled by City Hall, we have those notice boards already posted out front. We've attached the revised, well, this one is, I think, the roof plan. So that, or demolition plan is the first one attached to your packet. And then we also have the revised floor plan. So the addition is everything east of this number 2. So you can see a lot of changes happening in the interior of our existing building and then expansion over from 2 to 3. Through the design review and site plan process, a couple of items have come up, including a parking lot. And our design team have definitely gone into a more in-depth review of all of the costs associated with this project. So we do have a revised cost estimate to share with you tonight. So the original cost estimate was $1.55 million. And that was provided back in September. Since then, a couple of things have happened and led us to a highly recommended section of things that need to change. One thing is that there was rot identified on the building, which we weren't quite sure was going to happen last time, but we have confirmed that. And then I'm going to hand it over to Dom to explain some of these other costs.
Sure. So we have 4 bulleted costs and the additional costs, which are in the highly recommend, essentially stuff that needs to be done. There's some exterior work that needs to be done with the vinyl siding coming off. We're going to a cement fiber board, which will have a much longer life and be a higher quality product. But there were some additional costs to replace the exterior wall insulation, some painting cost for the fiber cement siding that we didn't have included before. There's also was found to be really some damaged lath and plaster walls that require replacement on the interior. on walls that were to remaining, those all have to be refurbished because it's old stuff that's not gonna last much longer. That was 25,000. And these additional costs include tax, include contingency. This isn't a subtotal that then gets marked up. I'm trying to give the full meal deal cost for these items. There's an HVAC system upgrade. We had thought we could reuse the existing HVAC system in terms of the HVAC units and just redo the ducting. It turns out that we do need to replace the HVAC systems in terms of the heat pump AC units. The 25,000 demolition of abatement. That is getting rid of some rod on the sill plate, removing a bunch of basically siding and foam behind that to get to it. That's a $25,000 hit. So a total of 87,000 are really things that, based on getting further into design, are things that we are recommending that are need to do. It's right to do. You're spending this amount of money on the project. These are extra costs we would have identified. Again, these are estimates. These are, coming to you. So we don't sit here at bid time and you say, well, Dom, you and Trent told us these costs were going to be less. We're getting these updated from the professional cost estimator. And then, so that brings the total increases it from 1.55 to 1.637. And then we have two major items that are really optional costs. One we talked about once before, which is the whole metal roof system. That's demoing and this is additional as compared to the base, which is doing a composite roof system. And I know we had the discussion, if you guys recall, no one's disputing that the metal roof will last longer and is a better product, but it costs more. And that cost also includes, anticipating replacing the whole roof sheathing system underneath, where the composite roofing, it's more likely that you would, tack on to what's there and not have all those demo and replacement costs for that roof sheathing system. So that's a $96,000 increase. I will tell you that our intent as a design team at this time is to bring forward the metal roof, with head nods from the council and staff as a bid alternate. So the bid, you have a base bid, you bid on this whole thing. Mr. Contractor, give us a price to do a metal roof, the whole meal deal shoot and match, instead of a composite asphalt shingle roof, even the best asphalt shingle in the world. As most people have asphalt shingles on their house, know that they don't last forever. And then the second optional cost is $40,000 for I believe it's 5 regular stalls and 1 ADA stall parking lot to the south of the building, and a walkway that gets you from A Street over to the new rear entrance. So that's curb, it's grading, it's asphalt, it's striping, it's parking bumpers, it's a full parking lot and walkway, and all in, we estimate that to be a $40,000 cost, which could, in theory, and if that's what we are directed to do, we could put that in the bid documents as well. Hey, give us a cost. So you have you have the opportunity at time of award to make a decision then, what can we afford as a city? What can the city afford? That, if both were selected based on our current estimates, that brings it up to $1.773 million. So the intent is to come back with the update. I think we committed to, and Courtney's really good at keeping us on task to bring you frequent updates to let you know where we are in the process. We are proceeding with the design. We believe we have a good floor plan, good layout. But some of these some of these decisions are being made, and I guess Courtney, I don't know if you want to wrap it up or take questions or.
Sure. The only thing that I would add is that part of the reason that the parking lot became more of a cost than what we were originally anticipating was originally we had that proposed to just be gravel. The problem is in part with our existing parking code, we cannot count the ADA stall that is on the street. And so we are open to requesting from the hearing examiner as well as planning commission and council that we do not add additional parking, but in order to be code compliant with the way that the code is written today for ADA stalls specifically, we do at least need to add the one ADA stall that would then have sidewalk to connect as an accessible route to the front of the building. That's all we have prepared tonight. Happy to answer any questions.
I know Marvin's got at least 6. Go ahead.
Yeah. First off, when you get old, ADA is a big deal. Trust me. If you ever get old, you know, but we go by this new building out here at the corner of Monday, Lawson 410. Maybe 3 times a week. Nice building. Roughly, from my estimate, 3,500 square feet. 3,500 square feet, brand new building. The building permit cost just at $600,000. That basically is the only cost. We don't have to pay $900,000 for land. We don't have to pay for parking because it's all full on river right now. And I just don't think this is a smart decision. The ability to expand. You know, I think this is really important because we got too many people within the city that have jobs where, oh, well, that got put over here and this got put over there. They continue to get raises, promotions, everything else. They're still doing the same job, only a whole lot less of it. And that costs the taxpayer. The ability, we can set it up if we put it on the corner of River and Jefferson. We could set it up so if we wanted to expand, we could do that. You remember, planning is sitting over here in a pretty sad position. I wouldn't work in this planning department with no more room in that, nor would I, as an engineer, or work for the city if all I had was a little cubicle to work in. You need space, you need your tools, everything. If we can't give people tools, then we're not doing our job. And this is, to me, very narrow-sighted. The disruption of normal operations. This isn't going to be an easy thing if we decide to tear this thing up when we've got our whole finance operation down there. If that happens, where are we going to put those people? I mean, just think about that, because when I worked at Boeing, when they moved us, which was not too often, Friday, they told us to pack up our stuff. Monday, it was at our new location. Didn't disrupt anything, you know, and I think that's important. We then, if we have the city hall over there, we can create a functional compound. The police force is, law enforcement is in a little tight space. They need more room. I'd look at the utility building to put them and give them that parking lot so they have the room. That way we can add the force we want and the force that's necessary. I mean, we've had some really good law enforcement recently. You read about it on the news pretty often. people really doing their job, the people in Moscow. I did the point of trying to check into their police thing. If you go to Moscow, they have a very interesting salary schedule. They have 20 positions on it. The one's pretty low, but the top one's not too bad. They have a bottom, mid, and max range. We do not have the income to cover some of these things. And that's why we have to get more efficient until we do create the income. But in case anybody missed the point, saying the new building will be so costly, why is the building permit priced as it is at 1/3 the cost of the building? Are we missing revenue? Or are they pricing it correctly? I'd like you to think about those things before we start going ahead on this, because I just can't support it. I mean, it's, to me, financially unsound.
Okay, thank you, Marvin.
Yeah.
Other comments? Questions on the remodel, the new additional possible additions or options for the bid process for City Hall? No, Brandon, good? He's muted, okay. Just raise your hand, Brandon. You've got anything, okay. All right. That was update number 1.
And
Okay.
I will start by saying that I do have a third that isn't on the agenda regarding the senior citizens audit, but I promise to keep these next 2 as brief as possible. The next update is for the Highway 410 realignment. This is something that was before the Public Works and Utilities Committee already. So this proposal that we are sharing with you tonight is the first step in a pre-design, but I do want to assure you all that we didn't necessarily create it from scratch. It is the result of a study that was done in 2018 by WashDOT. Parametrics is the firm that was hired to complete a study analyzing the traffic currently on 410. Tom, can you remind me what the full scope was in terms of the mileposts? I might even have put it in here. Oh, milepost 16 to 24.
Right. It included basically from Enumclaw all the way almost to Bonnie Lake. So it wasn't just Buckley, it was also coming in and out of, depending on how you view it.
But they did give us as a city specific recommendations for potential improvements along 410, which included a series of street widening as well as roundabouts at where we find today signalized intersections. So the third page here, the attachment provided gives a visual of what those recommendations were from that study, as well as a couple of things that we have identified as potential improvements that could be made. Specifically 1B, that would be a right-hand only turn pocket. That wasn't included in the WashDOT study, but it is something that we believe would relieve traffic at that intersection, as well as a proposed roundabout at 112th and 165, which, recognizing that roundabouts is not something that currently exists in this community, would be perhaps a phase 1 should the city choose to move forward with securing grant funding for a separate project in order for the community to start getting comfortable with roundabouts. So with that, if the council, recognizing that 410 is a problem for our community, is interested in taking on this project to make improvements along 410, the city has identified a grant called Safe Streets for All. It's a federal grant that opens this August. Awards wouldn't be made until early 2024. And we would be prepared to submit a grant to secure funding for the pre-design of this concept. And once we have secured that pre-design, we would be in a position to be able to secure actual funds for the construction of changes along 410. Just keeping expectations realistic, full completion of the 410 realignment is probably 10 or more years out. I have provided a timeline based off of the amount of time it takes for the grant awards as well as pre-design. And then some of the addition or alternative funding sources that we would be exploring in order to fund a 410 realignment project. This is a washed out road. So of course they would be involved heavily in the partnership. We've already reached out to them. They continue to support the original design that was found in that parametric study. And we would definitely reach out to them following this meeting, assuming that there is a level of consensus for us to move forward or respond to any of your questions. So we'd have state funds, Puget Sound Regional Council, Transportation Improvement Board, federal funds, and legislative asks, all of which today we are not in a position to go after because we do not have a pre-design or a real concept to present to any of these groups in order to secure funding. Do you have anything to add, Dom?
I would just say it's a lot of you in this community, I think, were around before, I would say, I guess what we did call the realignment project, which was the 410 SR 165, Ryan Road 112, Pearl Street was involved. Been alluded to in the past as dysfunction junction, malfunction junction, a junction not working. And I think most would agree that it works a lot better now. But that project was built in 2 phases, but it was a roughly 14-year process for that.
Thanks, Scotty.
And my take is it's going to be 10 to 15 years, but we got to start. We got to get these first in. We've got to get these projects fleshed out. So the city, the mayor, the council, Brandon with PSRC can keep sliding these projects under the state's nose, under TIB's nose, keep submitting them. Every time they ask, what's the city's top priority? 410 transportation. Do you have a plan? Yes, we have a plan. This is what we want to do. This is the sequence. This is the cost. And to be deliberate and, if there's developments along there that it makes sense that they trigger improvements and can partner on costs and get things done cheaper and easier. I think the city should be open to partnerships on that. But, some of these projects are significant and looking at traffic and, it's a lot. And I think that it's going to take, a lot of political will, and it's going to take prioritizing, as you guys as a city council, putting it high on the list. And it's WashDOT's not coming to the rescue and building it all themselves. It's not how they roll unless they change significantly. But it's a big undertaking. It's a big step, but you got to take the first steps. You got to get the ball rolling. I'm not trying to preach to you guys. I'm just saying from my perspective, I think that it's something that is a big endeavor, but I think it's something worth doing and worth starting. And, it's not really asking the city to commit city funds much at this time. It's to really go after these grants, and the feds do have a lot of money for infrastructure. But they also make you go through the process. You've got to have a planning document adopted by the city before you're eligible. You may be seeing a lot of this in the years, the 6-year transportation improvement plan, the update to the transportation element. You might get sick of seeing me talk about 410, but, here to help push it along as best we can, and I don't think there's any motion here at this time, but, Courtney's helping push this along as well. I think, given the timelines and the process, which I think is really important for this type of thing. Maybe the biggest thing really ever undertaken by this community. You can look at it. I mean, we're talking, maybe somewhere in the range of $50 to $60 million for the total of all these improvements, all these phases.
So as you all know, that this has been an issue and continues to grow by the week. So we've been kind of left to our own devices for many years. The Dysfunction Junction that was a huge undertaking in and of itself, 12 to 14 years. And that would have been, you could almost call that phase one of this. That had to be done. And now WashDOT definitely is not coming to our rescue, as Dom said. This is something we're gonna have to push forward. They're not looking at us. We're at the boundary between not only the two counties, but between the two WashDOT regions. Olympic and I can't remember the other. Those two regions also land on that same line. So we've got to get this thing going. The first thing is to put a plan, and this is kind of that first step. Go ahead, Amanda.
Well, I don't think there is anybody that's going to argue that we don't need something to fix the traffic. My question is, because I have a lot of questions that I won't ask tonight. If we apply for this grant and it says it's going to fund the pre-design of the proposed improvements, does that mean we are set at that we need to have, like what we have here means there will be all these round? I'm just asking, like, that means this is what we have to go. We have to follow this if we get that grant, or can anything change in that after receiving the grant?
It can change.
Okay.
It's a matter of confirmation. What is shown there is a hybrid between the study that WashDOT did,
Okay.
which had an exhaustive stakeholder. This file is huge of this process that they went through, taking all this input, doing all this. It's what they recommended. Plus has been augmented by city staff, Engray and Osborne, looking at, okay, these are things, but what are some kind of phase one? What are some maybe quick hitters that could really make an impact? And one is that right-hand turn lane coming up the hill from Enumclaw to Park, so that you can take a right on Park. And WashDOT has told the city a right turn pocket that gets 5 cars in there isn't going to do it. That needs to be a roughly 500-foot long right-hand turn lane so people can really get over there. And that's a somewhat low-hanging fruit so that we don't, even if a roundabout goes in at Park and 410, it may not be in the next 5 years, but a right-hand turn lane may be, 2 to 3 years. And then the other one I think is in the phase one is that roundabout down at SR 165 and 112th Ryan. I love intersections that have different road names going from each side, different directions, but and that one is, as most of you know, it's a very large 4-way stop. It's a long 4-way stop, or large, and so there may be a way to at a pretty reduced cost, I think, get a roundabout in the middle of that. And as Courtney said, and it sounds facetious, but there is something to getting a community used to using a roundabout. And if the first one just drops in the middle of 410, that might be a little cold water to the face of the community. But if we get one down there on 165 and 112th, and everyone, or conversely, maybe no one likes it and says, no, don't put any roundabouts, just keep with the signals, which is an option. But to answer your question in the longest way possible, it's not ironclad.
Okay.
Getting the planning grant is revisiting those, making forward the recommendations, making forward each of these intersections make sense.
And just showing that you have okay, that's what I wanted to know. Okay.
And Dom, can you talk to briefly? I know the WashDOT, I met with I met with the WashDOT gentleman out there last summer, and we stood there for a couple hours and studied the goings, comings and goings. And he talked briefly on, for lack of a better term, the cell phone tracking ability to find out if people are passed through that, all these different little pieces to the puzzle that we can plug in for this planning process to find out if people are, as we all know, a lot of people are just traveling through, some are coming in, some are leaving, and are the same cars, or not the same cars, but is the same volume leaving in the morning, or are they just coming home this way? And all that can be worked into this plan for the signals and all that. And I just don't know what they call it, but another part of this planning phase.
Yeah, part of it is continuing to, I guess, document the various movements and how much traffic in the peak hour, a lot of it is, it's the PM peak hour. It's the 4 to 6 PM. And it's optimizing, but I think in rough terms, I may have these numbers wrong, but I think that just simply changing that signal to a roundabout at that one intersection, it's something like quadruples the capacity of that intersection in terms of continually moving cars through. And I don't know that that's exactly at the peak hour, but I mean, it's pretty drastic numbers that kind of the throughput. But there's also, kind of looking at the phases. One of the things that the city has going for it is a lot of those intersections, they're spaced out real nice. They're spaced out. You don't have these kind of back-to-back signals and back-to-back roundabouts. Because that's the thing. If you put a roundabout and a signal is 500 feet away, you have people backing up and it doesn't work as well. So it's kind of, Bonnie Lake decided to do signals at every one of those. But that corridor through Bonnie Lake is very wide. I mean, you take, 2 travel lanes plus a right turn lane plus the center lane. I mean, in front of Costco, that, how wide that is. I mean, one of the things that this week the city could do is, you think of money lost from Hinkleman Extension. It can be 2 lanes each direction with a median that doesn't allow you to come out. You just have to go up to Hinkleman Extension and take basically a U-turn, and then if you want to head to Bonnie Lake. Same thing if you're on the north side of 410 and you want to, head into town. If you're facing a median, and that's how it's built, you go down the way and turn around, and they'll all be designed for trucks. That's all going to be part of it. But it's there is what you're talking about, Mayor Burkett, is continually tracking just in case something drastically changes. But I think that, and I don't know how to track the cell phones and how that is. I'm used to doing the traffic counts with the
Rubber counter. Yeah.
Mayor, Councilmember Green had some comments,
Oh,
so
sure.
I was just going to read those. He just said, "I'm thrilled to see this appear on the agenda so quickly after our discussions with the city administrator. And I know the mayor has been quite passionate about this as well. Let's get this ball rolling and pester who we need to at all levels until we get this done. Have we engaged our neighboring cities, Enumclaw, or our county council member about partnering with us on getting this moving? No pun intended."
I have engaged with both Enumclaw as well as Bonnie Lake, and they've indicated that they would be interested in partnering with us in a future legislative session. So.
Marvin.
One of the other things we need to look at is avoiding the traffic. Setting it up so the traffic, for example, could come down the Auburn Enumclaw Highway, turn left and go through the Mundy Loss area and not show up in Buckley. And that's something we need to look at also. That traffic comes through twice a day. And it is not traffic that's useful to the city. It's traffic that, they want to get here and they want to get there. But I think we should think of at least putting it in the hopper of something from Enumclaw, from the Auburn Enumclaw Highway down through that area, bridge across the White River, and come up about where Marion Grange is. There's a nice low area there, and catch Mundy Loss and avoid the city. They're building a lot of houses out there.
Bypass has been discussed.
Bypass.
It's been, I don't know how much discussion there has been, but we wouldn't have much to say about that because we'd be outside the city limits, but
I understand that, but we should still put it on the table.
Yep.
I know we only control our boundary.
Yeah.
But if we did that, it would help us considerably.
Okay. Thank you, Brandon, by the way, and other comments on the 410? We got one more after this. If you got anything else? Okay.
Thank you, Dom. Okay, last item, the senior citizens audit. I'm going to invite our Parks and Recs Director, Erin Snodgrass, to join.
I will try to keep this short and then answer any questions that you guys have. Towards the end of the year, we were brought up to Pierce County. They approached us wanting to do an audit on CARES funds that the senior center received. Be nuts to me, I wasn't here at that time and neither was Chloe. It took us a little time to figure out what the heck they were talking about. It turns out the money did not come to the city. The money came to the Buckley Senior Citizens nonprofit organization, which for a long period of time has helped us operate the Buckley Senior Center in-house. This audit brought to light many issues in that there's never been a long-term standing agreement of how our agency as the city and the nonprofit work together to operate the senior center. With that being said, the CARES grant that ran, this is separate from the CARES funding that the city received. I want to start out by saying that this was CARES funding just for disability and aging services set aside to reach seniors during COVID. Was applied for by city staff, used city insurance, and moved forward through the nonprofit. The nonprofit then claimed expenses that they had taken to help keep operations going, including feeding programs and some things just operationally here during that time. They also claimed city wages, but the city was paying that staff. And those were found not to be reimbursed and paid back to the city. Long story short, we found a lot of things out. We did a ton of double checking to make sure we did not claim something on one grant, for example, our community development block grant, and also claim CARES. We didn't claim our CARES, the city's CARES, and this CARES for any of the mileage that staff went through when there was no fuel being double dipped and charged to both the grant and the city, things like that. The real issue was the staff time was never repaid to the city that the nonprofit received funding for. Long story short, they came and audited today. We have about a month probably till we get the formal findings. This was triggered because Pierce County was audited by the federal government. Pierce County then realized they made some mistakes in their disbursement process. So it's not fully on the city or on the nonprofit. And it sounds like there's a good chance that the money will just stick with the nonprofit and kind of have to be held because we're not in a place to take the money because that was 2020. And the county doesn't want it back because it's federal money. So we could have kind of just the money sitting there in case the feds do want it back. But wanted to give you guys a heads up on that situation. The good thing of it is it's brought to light where our agreements can be fixed, repaired, and made stronger so we can serve the seniors better. And in the next couple of weeks, you guys will start seeing some information in one of our study sessions about community commissions to help us serve the seniors better so that something like this doesn't put the city at risk again or the nonprofit. And so services can continue. So any questions? Anything I forgot to add?
No, that was great. Thank you, Erin.
Super. Any questions for Erin? No. All right. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you.
Citizen
Yep,
participation again?
citizen participation. If anything triggered something, you want to step up to the mic, have at it. Otherwise, we're a little more than 2 hours deep tonight. All right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, everybody.